There has never been another star quite like Clint Walker, standing at a towering 6 feet 6 inches and weighing anywhere from 235 to 255 pounds of naturally developed muscle. Walker didn't just enter Hollywood. He physically dominated it. His massive chest measured up to 52 inches around. His shoulders were so broad that costume designers had to create entirely new patterns just to fit him. His arms, naturally thick at 17 to 18 inches, looked like they belonged to a professional strongman, not an actor. And yet, Clint Walker never spent years in a gym. He never followed bodybuilding routines. He never obsessed over muscle development the way modern action stars do. Clint Walker's physique was built the old-fashioned way, through years of brutal physical labor, outdoor work, and the kind of real-world strength that comes from hauling, lifting, and surviving. When he stepped onto the set of Cheyenne in 1955, he became television's first genuinely massive action hero. His size redefined what a Western star could look like. Before Walker, leading men in Westerns were tough, sure, but they weren't giants. They weren't men whose physical presence alone could change the entire energy of a scene. Clint Walker was different. He was a natural powerhouse who looked like he could break a man in half, yet spoke with a calm, gentle voice that made audiences feel safe. Hollywood had seen big actors before. It had seen muscular actors. But it had never seen someone who combined towering height, massive natural muscle, perfect proportions, and genuine acting ability all in one package. Walker's Clint Walker muscle wasn't sculpted in a gym. It was forged in factories, on ships, and in the kind of manual labor that built men before the fitness industry even existed. His Clint Walker height made him stand above nearly every co-star he ever worked with. His Clint Walker strength was undeniable, visible in every shirtless scene, every fight sequence, every moment where the camera captured the sheer scale of his body. The Cheyenne TV show turned him into a household name almost overnight. Audiences across America watched this enormous man move with surprising grace, fight with devastating power, and embody the ultimate image of the American frontier hero. Critics describe him as unbelievably big, built like a mountain, and impossible to ignore. He became one of the biggest actors in Hollywood, not just in fame, but in literal physical size. His classic Western physique set a standard that old Hollywood action stars try to match but rarely achieved. He was a vintage strong actor in the truest sense, and among natural muscle legends, he remains one of the most impressive specimens ever captured on film. This is a story of how one man's naturally massive frame changed Hollywood forever, and why no one has ever quite matched what Clint Walker brought to the screen. The origins of a giant. Clint Walker wasn't born in a gym. He was born Norman Eugene Walker in 1927 in Illinois, and he grew up during one of the hardest periods in American history, the Great Depression. This wasn't a time when young men had the luxury of pursuing athletics or building muscle for vanity. This was a time when survival meant work, and work meant physical labor that broke weaker men down. From childhood, Walker was thrust into environments that demanded strength. He worked in factories where heavy materials had to be moved by hand. He labored on farms where bales of hay, sacks of grain, and farming equipment had to be lifted and carried for hours. He spent time in warehouses, hauling crates, and loading trucks. Every single one of these jobs built his body in ways that no modern gym routine ever could. His chest expanded from the constant heavy breathing required during grueling work shifts. His shoulders grew wide and thick from years of carrying weight. His arms became naturally powerful from gripping, pulling, and pushing massive objects day after day. At 17, Walker joined the Merchant Marines. This decision added another layer of functional strength to his already impressive frame. Life on a ship meant constant physical exertion, tying ropes, hauling cargo, maintaining equipment, and performing tasks that required full-body coordination and raw power. The ocean didn't care if you were tired. The ship didn't stop moving. You either kept up or you failed. Walker kept up, and his body responded by becoming even larger and more capable. After his time at sea, Walker continued working physically demanding jobs. He worked as a bouncer, where his size was an asset. He took security positions, where his presence alone could defuse dangerous situations. He worked construction, lifting and moving materials that required serious muscle to handle. He worked as a doorman, standing for hours and occasionally dealing with difficult people who needed to be physically removed from premises. This was the foundation of Clint Walker's legendary physique. It wasn't planned. It wasn't designed by a trainer. It was simply the result of a life that required constant physical effort. His massive ribcage, his giant chest, his huge shoulders, his naturally thick arms, his powerful legs, all of it came from real, functional, hard physical work. He looked like a strong man because he had essentially been training like one for years, except instead of lifting weights in a controlled environment, he was lifting whatever life threw at him. By the time Hollywood discovered him, Clint Walker had already built one of the most impressive natural physiques in the world. He just didn't know it yet. The discovery of a massive star. Clint Walker's entry into Hollywood wasn't the result of careful planning or years of acting school. It happened because his sheer physical size made it impossible for people to ignore him. While working as a security guard in Las Vegas, Walker's enormous frame constantly drew attention. People would stop and stare. They would ask questions. They would wonder if he was a professional athlete or a wrestler. Eventually, someone in the entertainment industry noticed him and suggested he try acting. When Walker showed up for his first casting calls, the reactions were immediate and dramatic. Casting agents described him as unbelievably big, built like a mountain, and impossible to fit into standard costumes. Hollywood had seen tall actors before. It had seen muscular actors, but it had never seen someone who combined both qualities so dramatically while also having the facial features and presence that could work on camera. The problem was that Hollywood's infrastructure wasn't built for someone like Clint Walker. Standard costumes didn't fit. Wardrobe departments had to create entirely new patterns and measurements. His shirts had to be custom-made because his chest and shoulders were so broad that off-the-rack clothing would either tear or look absurdly tight. Even his hats looked small on his massive head. Camera operators had to adjust their angles because Walker's height created framing challenges when he stood next to average-sized co-stars. But these weren't problems that would stop Hollywood from using him. They were challenges worth solving because Walker's size represented something the industry had never fully capitalized on: a leading man who looked genuinely powerful. Western heroes up to that point had been tough, rugged, and capable, but they weren't physically overwhelming. Walker changed that equation instantly. When he walked into a room, he dominated it. When he stood next to other actors, he dwarfed them. When the camera captured his full frame, audiences couldn't look away. His presence shifted the entire idea of what a Western hero could look like. Suddenly, casting directors realized that size could be a major asset. The image of the frontier cowboy didn't have to be a lean, wiry gunslinger. It could be a massive, powerful force of nature who embodied physical strength as much as moral courage. Clint Walker's discovery proved that Hollywood had been underestimating the appeal of genuinely large men, and once they saw what he brought to the screen, they knew they had something special. Cheyenne and instant fame. When Cheyenne debuted in 1955, it didn't just launch Clint Walker's career. It redefined what television action heroes could look like. The show became one of the biggest hits on TV, and Walker became a household name almost overnight. Audiences tuned in every week to watch this enormous man navigate the frontier with a combination of physical power and quiet dignity that felt completely new. The show's producers understood exactly what they had in Walker, and they made sure to showcase his size at every opportunity. Shirtless scenes became a regular feature, giving viewers a full look at his incredible natural muscle. His massive chest, his huge shoulders, his thick arms, all was on display, and audiences reacted with genuine shock. Many viewers had never seen a man who was naturally that large. This wasn't a bodybuilder who had spent years sculpting his physique in a gym. This was a man whose body looked like it had been built for actual physical work, and that authenticity resonated powerfully. Critics praised Walker's performance, but they were equally captivated by his physical presence. Reviewers described him as having a frame that filled the screen, as being built on a scale that makes other men look small, and as possessing the kind of natural strength that can't be faked. The role of Cheyenne Bodie required more than just acting. It required someone who could believably perform the physical demands of frontier life. Walker didn't have to fake anything. His size and strength were real, and it showed in every scene. One of the most striking aspects of Cheyenne was how Walker's size created visual contrast that heightened the drama. When he fought villains, he genuinely outsized them by several inches and dozens of pounds. When he stood next to stunt performers, he looked like a different species of human being. Even the horses had to be specially selected because average-sized horses looked too small beneath him. Everything about the production had to be adjusted to accommodate his massive frame, and that adjustment made the show feel more epic and larger-than-life than other westerns of the era. The show ran from 1955 to 1962, and during that time, Clint Walker became one of the most recognizable faces and bodies in American entertainment. He proved that television could support a genuinely massive action star, and his success paved the way for other large actors to find similar roles. Cheyenne wasn't just a hit show. It was a cultural moment that changed how America pictured its frontier heroes. His natural muscle and why it was unique. Clint Walker's physique was extraordinary not just because of its size, but because of how it was built. His body represented something increasingly rare in Hollywood. Completely natural development achieved through years of functional physical work rather than targeted muscle-building programs. Understanding why his build was so unique requires looking at the specific features that made him stand out. Walker had a massive rib cage that gave him a barrel-chested appearance. This wasn't the result of bench pressing or chest flies. It came from years of heavy breathing during intense physical labor. When you spend hours lifting, hauling, and working in demanding conditions, your lungs expand, your chest develops, and your entire torso becomes larger. Walker's chest measured up to 52 inches around, a measurement that would be impressive even for modern bodybuilders using advanced training methods. His shoulders were extraordinarily broad, creating a frame that looked wider than almost any actor in Hollywood history. This came from his naturally long clavicles, combined with years of work that developed his deltoids and upper back. Carrying heavy objects, pulling ropes, lifting materials overhead. All of these movements built his shoulders into powerful, rounded masses that made his upper body look impossibly wide on screen. His arms were long and thick, measuring around 17 to 18 inches naturally. These weren't arms built through endless sets of bicep curls. They were arms developed through gripping, pulling, and handling heavy objects day after day. His forearms were particularly impressive, showing the kind of thickness that comes from real-world strength rather than isolation exercises. Perhaps most remarkably, Walker maintained a relatively lean waist despite his massive upper body. At 34 to 36 inches, his waist created a dramatic V-taper that gave him perfect proportions. This combination, huge chest, broad shoulders, thick arms, lean waist, is exactly what bodybuilders spend years trying to achieve. Walker had it naturally. What made his build truly rare was that he achieved all of this without coming from a bodybuilding background. In the 1950s, there was no widespread fitness culture. There were no personal trainers, no supplement industries, no Instagram fitness influencers showing people how to build muscle. Walker's physique came purely from physical work and genetics. He represented the last generation of naturally massive men. Men whose bodies were built by life itself rather than by carefully designed training programs. This is why fitness enthusiasts today study Clint Walker with such fascination. His body proves that with the right genetics and enough physical labor, the human frame can develop incredible size and strength without modern training methods. He was nature's experiment in building the perfect action hero physique, and the results spoke of themselves every time he appeared on screen. Training methods he actually used. Clint Walker's approach to physical fitness was fundamentally different from modern action stars. He wasn't obsessed with the gym. He didn't follow rigid bodybuilding routines. He didn't track every rep and set. Instead, his training philosophy reflected the era he came from, an era when strength was built through natural movement and physical work rather than isolated muscle exercises. Swimming was Walker's favorite form of exercise. He spent considerable time in the water, which built several key aspects of his physique. Swimming develops the back incredibly well, creating width and thickness through the constant pulling motions. It builds round, powerful shoulders through the overhead movements required for different strokes. It expands the chest through the deep breathing patterns necessary for sustained swimming. Walker's massive upper body development can be directly traced to his love of swimming, which served as both his primary cardio and his main upper body workout. Outdoor work remained a constant in his life, even after achieving fame. Walker continued activities like wood chopping, which builds explosive power to the core, shoulders, and back. He engaged in farm-style lifting when opportunities arose, maintaining the connection to the physical labor that had originally built his frame. He carried heavy objects, did rope work, and engaged in manual tasks that kept his body functionally strong rather than just aesthetically impressive. Walker did incorporate some weightlifting into his routine, but it was basic and occasional rather than obsessive. He used dumbbells and performed fundamental barbell lifts, but he never followed the complex split routines that bodybuilders use. His approach to weights was practical. Lift heavy things occasionally to maintain strength, but don't make it the center of your entire existence. Long-distance hiking was another key component of his fitness approach. Walking for miles, often on uneven terrain, built his legs and cardiovascular system while keeping his body lean. This type of steady-state activity burns calories without breaking down muscle, which helped Walker maintain his massive size while staying relatively lean. His work on Western sets also contributed to his physical condition. Mounting and dismounting large horses repeatedly built leg strength and core stability. Hauling saddles and equipment kept his upper body engaged. Fight scenes required explosive movements and full-body coordination. Even handling firearms built his forearms and grip strength through the constant repetition of drawing, aiming, and managing weapons. The critical point is that Walker's physique was built before the modern fitness culture existed. He didn't have access to the specialized equipment, nutrition knowledge, or training science that athletes use today. His body was a product of an earlier era when men got strong by doing hard physical work and staying active through natural movement. This made him unique among action stars and helps explain why his look has never been fully replicated. Modern actors can build muscle in gyms, but they can't quite capture the authentic, functional quality that Walker's body displayed. The look of a man whose strength came from surviving and working rather than from pursuing aesthetics. How he compared to other action stars. To truly understand how Clint Walker outsized his generation, we need to compare him directly to the other major action stars and physically impressive actors of his era. These comparisons reveal just how unique his combination of height, mass, and proportions really was. Steve Reeves stood at 6 feet 1 inch and was famous for having one of the most symmetrical, aesthetically perfect physiques in film history. Reeves was undeniably impressive, with classical proportions and excellent muscle development. However, Walker was literally 5 inches taller and significantly heavier. When you see them in comparison, Reeves looks like a perfectly built man, while Walker looks like a giant. Reeves had beauty. Walker had overwhelming physical presence. Gordon Scott, another major muscle star of the era, stood at 6 feet 3 inches and had an excellent build. Scott was known for his Tarzan roles and had genuine athletic ability. But even at 6 feet 3 inches, Scott still came up 3 inches shorter than Walker. More importantly, Walker had noticeably broader shoulders, a thicker torso, and more overall mass. Scott looked powerful. Walker looked immovable. Chuck Connors, star of The Rifleman, stood at 6 feet 5 inches, just 1 inch shorter than Walker. On paper, they seemed comparable. In reality, they weren't close. Connors was tall but relatively lean. He had height, but not the massive muscle development that Walker possessed. Connors looked like a tall, athletic man. Walker looked like someone had taken a tall man and doubled his width. Charles Bronson stood at only 5 feet 9 inches, but had incredibly dense muscle and a tough, intimidating presence. Bronson's build was impressive for his height, showing thick development throughout his frame. However, comparing Bronson to Walker is almost unfair. Walker dwarfed him by 9 inches in height and had vastly more overall mass. Bronson could look tough in close-ups, but wide shots next to Walker would have made the size difference comically obvious. James Arness, star of Gunsmoke, actually stood slightly taller than Walker at 6 feet 7 inches. This makes Arness one of the very few actors who could match Walker in height. However, Arness was considerably slimmer. He had the build of a tall, athletic man rather than a massively muscular one. Walker looked like the bigger man, despite being technically 1 inch shorter, purely because of his incredible width and muscle mass. The pattern becomes clear when examining these comparisons. Hollywood had tall actors. It had muscular actors. But but had only one actor who combined elite-level height with massive natural muscle development and perfect proportions all at once. Walker wasn't just big in one dimension. He was extraordinary in every physical measurement that mattered. His height gave him presence. His muscle mass gave him power. His proportions gave him aesthetics. No other star of his generation matched all three qualities simultaneously. This unique combination meant that Walker occupied his own category. He wasn't competing with other action stars because there was no one else quite like him to compete with. He was, in the truest sense, a one-man category, the biggest naturally developed action star Hollywood had ever seen. The films that showed his size best. While Cheyenne made Clint Walker famous, his film work provided opportunities to showcase his massive frame in different contexts and with higher production values. Several key films captured his size particularly well and demonstrated that his physical presence translated powerfully to the big screen. Yellowstone Kelly, 1959, placed Walker in military uniforms that emphasized his huge traps and shoulders. The film's outdoor settings and action sequences gave audiences a clear view of his full frame and motion. When Walker wore the fitted period costumes, the strain on the fabric from his massive upper body was visible, creating a visual reminder of just how large he was. Fight scenes in the film showed his size advantage over virtually every other person on screen. Night of the Grizzly, 1966, took full advantage of outdoor cinematography to capture Walker's scale against natural landscapes. The film's premise, a man defending his family against a massive bear, required someone whose physical presence suggested he could actually win such a confrontation. Walker's huge frame made the premise believable. Scenes showing him performing ranch work, lifting heavy materials, and physically dominating space demonstrated that his strength wasn't just for show. The Dirty Dozen, 1967, put Walker alongside an ensemble cast of tough guy acts including Lee Marvin, Jim Brown, Charles Bronson, and Telly Savalas. Even in this group of notably masculine physical performers, Walker stood out. The film's group shots reveal that Walker is several inches taller than most of his castmates and noticeably broader through the chest and shoulders. His presence in the film adds to its sense of raw masculine power. None But the Brave, 1965, showcased Walker in a World War II setting where his size created interesting visual dynamics. Military equipment that looked appropriately scaled for other actors looked small in Walker's hands. His presence in combat scenes added weight to the action because his physicality suggested genuine danger. When Walker's character engaged in hand-to-hand combat, there was no question about who would win based purely on physical advantages. Gold of the Seven Saints, 1961, paired Walker with Roger Moore in a Western adventure. The contrast between the two actors was striking. Moore, while handsome and capable, looked positively small standing next to Walker. The film's action sequences highlighted Walker's natural athletic ability despite his size, showing that he could move quickly and fight effectively even with his massive frame. What these films collectively demonstrate is that Walker's size wasn't just impressive in still photographs or carefully framed television shots. It translated powerfully to theatrical releases with better cameras, bigger screens, and more demanding action choreography. His massive chest and shoulders filled the frame no matter how the camera was positioned. His height made him the dominant figure in nearly every scene he appeared in. His natural muscle created a sense of authentic power that enhanced every physical moment. These films also showed that Walker could actually act while being that large. He wasn't just a bodybuilder trying to memorize lines. He was a legitimate performer who happened to have the most impressive physique in Hollywood. That combination of genuine acting ability and overwhelming physical presence made these films work in ways they never could have with a smaller or less capable lead. Why Hollywood didn't fully capitalize on his size. Despite Clint Walker's obvious appeal and unique physical advantages, Hollywood never fully capitalized on what he offered. This represents one of the more frustrating aspects of his career, the sense that the industry didn't quite know what to do with someone so exceptional. Part of the problem was the limited vision of casting directors and producers. The entertainment industry tends to follow established patterns rather than innovate. When Walker came along, there was no template for how to use an actor who was simultaneously 6 feet 6 inches, massively muscular, naturally proportioned, and capable of carrying a lead role. Most casting decisions defaulted to established types: the rugged cowboy, the tough detective, the charming leading man. Walker fit none of these categories perfectly because he was physically larger than any of them. Era trends also worked against Walker's potential. By the mid-1960s, Hollywood was moving away from the Western genre that had made him famous. Audience taste shifted toward more modern settings, psychological dramas, and counterculture films. The massive, physically dominant hero that Walker embodied started to feel old-fashioned as the decade progressed. Studios wanted different types of leading men, more vulnerable, more psychologically complex, more representative of changing social attitudes. Additionally, the Western stereotype itself was shifting. The frontier hero was increasingly portrayed as lean, wiry, and quick rather than large and powerful. The archetype moved toward speed and cunning rather than strength and presence. This shift meant that Walker's greatest asset, his size, became less relevant to the types of westerns being made. Producers also struggled with the practical challenges of using someone Walker's size. Finding appropriate co-stars who wouldn't be completely dwarfed next to him was difficult. Creating believable romantic pairings was challenging when Walker made even tall actresses look small. Action scenes required special consideration because Walker's size made many fight choreography choices unrealistic. How do you create tension in a fight scene when a hero is obviously twice as strong as anyone else in the frame? Perhaps most significantly, Walker was a one-man category with no direct comparisons. Hollywood works by pattern recognition and precedent. When an actor succeeds, studios look for similar actors to replicate that success. But who else was like Clint Walker? There was no one else combining his height, his mass, his natural build, and his screen presence. This made him difficult to replicate and difficult to build franchises around. He was unique, and the industry didn't know how to systematize uniqueness. The result was that Walker had a successful career, but never became the megastar his physical gifts suggested he could be. He worked steadily. He earned well. He maintained his fame, but he never dominated Hollywood the way his size dominated every scene he appeared in. This represents a missed opportunity for both Walker and the industry. The films that could have been made with him, action epics that truly leverage his massive frame, adventure films that use his size as a central hook, franchises built around an unstoppable physical hero, were never fully realized. Walker's career shows both the power of being genuinely unique and the limitations that uniqueness can create in an industry that prefers predictability over innovation. His personality versus his size. One of the most fascinating aspects of Clint Walker's appeal was the dramatic contrast between his enormous, intimidating physique and his gentle, calm personality. This duality made him beloved by fans and created a unique dynamic that enhanced his on-screen presence. Despite standing 6 feet 6 inches with massive shoulders and arms that looked like they could crush stone, Walker spoke with a calm, measured voice. He was polite in public interactions, approachable with fans, and known throughout Hollywood for being genuinely nice to work with. Cast and crew members consistently described him as a pleasure to collaborate with, professional, easygoing, and lacking the ego that often accompanies major stardom. This gentle nature earned him the nickname, Hollywood's Gentle Giant, a label that captured the contradiction at his core. He could have used his size to intimidate people or demand special treatment. Instead, he used it to make others feel safe. Fans appreciated that someone so physically imposing could also be so friendly and welcoming. Parents felt comfortable letting their children watch Cheyenne because Walker projected both strength and kindness. He was powerful enough to defeat villains, but gentle enough to be a positive role model. The contrast between his size and personality also enhanced his performances. When Walker played heroes, audiences could see that his strength came with restraint. His characters were powerful, but not violent for violence's sake. They protected the weak because they had the ability to do so, not because they enjoyed hurting others. This made his heroes feel more noble and more compelling than simple tough guys who fought because they were angry. In a way, Walker's personality was perfectly suited to his era. The 1950s and early 1960s emphasized traditional masculinity that included both strength and gentleness. The ideal man was supposed to be capable of violence, but only in defense of others. Walker embodied this ideal naturally. His massive frame made the strength obvious, while his calm demeanor demonstrated the restraint that made that strength heroic rather than threatening. Off-screen stories about Walker reinforced this image. He helped fans who approached him for autographs. He was patient during long filming days. He treated everyone on set with respect regardless of their role in the production. These weren't calculated public relations moves. They were simply who he was. The size was genetics and hard work. The kindness was character. This combination of overwhelming physical presence and genuine likability created something rare in Hollywood, a star who could be both aspirational and relatable. Men wanted to be as strong as Walker, but they also wanted to be as decent. Women found him attractive not despite his size, but because his gentleness made that size feel protective rather than threatening. Children saw him as a hero who could save anyone but would never hurt anyone who didn't deserve it. The duality also added depth to his image in ways that pure physical stars often lack. Walker wasn't just a body. He was a complete person whose character made his physical gifts more meaningful. This made him memorable in ways that outlasted his actor career, and helps explain why his legacy remains so strong among fans of classic Hollywood. The legacy of the biggest natural star ever. Today, more than 60 years after Cheyenne first aired, Clint Walker remains a figure of fascination for fitness enthusiasts, classic film fans, and anyone interested in the history of action heroes. His legacy centers on one undeniable truth. He had one of the greatest natural physiques in Hollywood history, built during an era when such development was achieved through real physical work rather than modern training methods. Fitness communities consistently rank Walker among the most impressive natural bodybuilders who ever lived, despite the fact that he was never actually a bodybuilder. His combination of size, proportion, and leanness represents what many consider the ideal male physique. Modern lifters study his measurements and photographs, try to understand how someone could build such mass without access to contemporary training knowledge, nutrition science, or performance enhancement. The answer, of course, is that his body was built through years of grueling physical labor, a method that can't be easily replicated in today's world. Walker also serves as a prototype for the action stars who followed him. When Arnold Schwarzenegger emerged in the 1970s and 1980s as a massive muscular action hero, he was walking a path that Walker had pioneered decades earlier. When Sylvester Stallone built his body for the Rambo films, he was creating a version of what Walker had naturally possessed in the 1950s. The entire concept of the oversized action hero, the man whose physical presence alone makes him believable as someone who can defeat multiple enemies, traces directly back to Clint Walker's groundbreaking presence on Cheyenne. For Western enthusiasts, Walker represents the ultimate frontier hero. His size made him believable as someone who could survive the harsh conditions of the American West through sheer physical capability. Unlike smaller, quicker cowboys who relied on speed and cunning, Walker's characters could simply overpower obstacles through raw strength. This created a different type of Western hero, one who embodied the idea that the frontier was conquered by the largest, strongest, most capable men. Walker's legacy also represents the end of an era. He was among the last major Hollywood stars whose physique was built naturally through physical work rather than targeted gym training. Modern action stars achieve their bodies through personal trainers, nutritionists, and carefully designed programs. Walker's body was the product of merchant marine work, factory labor, and years of outdoor physical activity. As such, he represents an authentic connection to an earlier type of masculinity, one built through necessity rather than choice. The natural aspect of his build particularly resonates with modern audiences who are increasingly aware of how much pharmaceutical assistance exists in fitness culture. Walker's physique was achieved without any of the shortcuts that have become common in bodybuilding and action filmmaking. This authenticity makes him more impressive to many observers than contemporary stars with similar sizes, because everyone knows Walker's body was genuine. His influence extends beyond just physical culture. Comic book artists have cited Walker as inspiration for superhero designs. The broad shoulders, massive chest, and powerful frame that define characters like Superman and Captain America reflect the proportions that Walker naturally possessed. In a sense, Walker was a real-life superhero physique that influenced how artists imagined fictional ones. Perhaps most significantly, Walker proved that genuine physical presence could carry a career. He wasn't the greatest actor of his generation, though he was certainly competent. What he had was something no acting class could teach, a body that commanded attention, that made every scene more dramatic simply through his physical existence in it. This lesson wasn't lost on Hollywood. which has spent a decade since Walker's prime searching for actors who could duplicate that effect. Clint Walker's legacy is ultimately about the power of natural, functional strength combined with perfect genetics. He was built at the perfect time, late enough to be captured on film and television, early enough to have built his body through real physical work. He bridges the gap between the working-class strongmen of earlier eras and the carefully sculpted action heroes of modern cinema. And in that bridge, he remains unique, the biggest, most naturally impressive action star Hollywood has ever produced. Clint Walker wasn't just big. He was the last giant of the natural era, a man whose massive 6 feet 6 inches frame and 52-inch chest were forged through years of brutal physical labor, not gym routines. His size wasn't manufactured by trainers or supplements. It was built in factories, on ships, and through the kind of real-world work that no longer exists. Hollywood had never seen anyone combine his towering height, massive natural muscle, and perfect proportions all at once, and it never would again. Walker proved that with exceptional genetics and hard physical work, the human body could achieve something extraordinary without shortcuts. He remains the ultimate natural muscle legend and the standard by which all naturally developed physiques are measured, the most impressive, most authentic, and most physically commanding presence Hollywood ever put on screen. If you enjoyed learning about Clint Walker's incredible natural physique and his dominance over every action star of his generation, make sure to like this video. Drop a comment with your thoughts on old Hollywood's biggest stars, and subscribe for more documentaries about the legendary figures who built their bodies the real way, through sweat, labor, and raw determination.